I'll just pop. So just to say to our attendees, welcome and good evening. And sorry we're late. We started up our Zoom. We had a lovely chat at 6:30, and then at 7:02, Zoom crashed. So that's a nice little introduction to webinars with Manchester Craft and Design. This is our first time doing a webinar, and hopefully it'll be the last time that Zoom crashes 2 minutes before the webinar begins. We'll just give it a couple more minutes to let anyone else in that might be waiting. But as we do that, I'll just go through a couple of housekeeping points. So my name's Laura. I am Exhibitions and Events Officer at Manchester Craft and Design. So when we're open, we have a little event space and a little exhibition space where we want to programme highlighting amazing craft from the region and nationally and internationally. And since lockdown, we've been looking at taking that programme online. So I'll let Kate tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. We have had a really great response to this webinar. So we had lots and lots of questions from everyone, way more than we would be able to get to in the hour that we've got here. So what we've done is we've just tried to kind of match questions up that are similar, blend a couple of questions and ask the ones that have come up a few different times. So we're trying to get through as many as possible. There is a chat function and a Q&A function. So if you're having any technical difficulties, just give me a shout in that chat box and I'll see if I can help it out. I'll be looking after that. And if you've got any burning questions or if there's anything that we cover that you just want us to kind of touch on at the end, if you pop that in the Q&A and we'll see if we've got a little bit of time at the end to do that. The other thing just to mention is that we're recording this session, so we'll be able to pop that online either on our website or on YouTube. So if there's anything you want to revisit or you want to send it to anyone else, that will be available. And then we just also wanted to invite you all to join our Maker Network and our Maker Network Facebook page. So I will pop a link to both of those into the chat as well. And that's where we just post any opportunities. We do a monthly newsletter to let you know what's going on at the centre. And if there's any sort of regional opportunities that we think are good for makers, we'll pop that on there as well. But I will turn my video off now and let our lovely speakers talk. So yeah, just give me a shout in the chat if you need any help and I will be here. Thanks.
Sorry, Kate, I think you're on mute, Kate.
Can't believe it. It's one of those days, I think. So what I just said was, hi everyone, I'm Kate Day and I'm Director of Manchester Craft and Design Centre. I'm going to be chairing tonight's discussion. I'm so sorry about the technical problems. We've never had that before, and also my computer crashed while we were experiencing that too. So anyway, apologies for the lost time, but hopefully we can make up for that. I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us tonight as the audience. Do appreciate that everybody is a bit kind of over zoomed and it's great that you can make a bit of time this evening. Thank you to all our panel members in advance. We've got a fantastic wide-ranging experience in our panel members, ranging from 2 years in business to 20 years in business. And they're going to be generously sharing their experiences of the impact of the pandemic on their creative practice and their work. Just to say briefly, thank you to our funders, Arts Council, Manchester City Council and the Radcliffe Trust. and to Laura, my colleague, for organising this session. So we're going to be going for about an hour. We're not going to take a break because we want to get through the questions in a timely way. I guess as a starting point, we're hoping to see a post-pandemic future at some point, but I think we all recognise that nothing's going to be the same for quite a while. And at the Craft and Design Centre, we really want to know what would be most useful to makers to help them build their creative practice and kind of climb out of this pandemic reality that we're in at the moment. So it would be really great to get your feedback after the session. Laura's going to send an evaluation form out, and that really helps us in terms of getting funding for events like this, but also to know what's most useful for you as creative practitioners for the future. And all the details will be stored confidentially. So I was going to kind of talk a bit about what we've been doing at the Craft and Design Centre, but I think I'm going to cut that short because really it's our panellists who you want to hear from at the moment. Couple of things just to mention though. Firstly, Grace Sharp, who's one of our panellists. Do you want to give us a wave, Grace?
Hi.
So Grace is our latest exhibitor. She was due to have a show open just before the lockdown happened last year, and we're hoping to launch that show as soon as possible when we can reopen again, so hopefully around about May time. In the meantime, there's some online content about Grace and her work on our website, so perhaps Laura can pop a link into the chat box. So check that out when you have 5 or 10 minutes to spare, and then hopefully you can come and see the work in the flesh at the centre itself when it launches. So on that note, shall I pass on to you, Grace, just to introduce yourself briefly, and we'll do some quick introductions first.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Grace. I'm a glass artist. Graduated from Manchester School of Art in 2019. So I haven't been doing it very long. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. A lot of my work's based on mental health and things like that. And my show at Manchester, the design centre's all based around my mental health as well. So that's cool.
Brilliant. Thanks, Grace. And you're based down in Wiltshire at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, currently, yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to Sophie Sellu, who is down in South London at the moment. Do you want to just do a quick intro, Sophie?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sophie Sellu. I'm a woodworker. I've been running my business, Grain and Knot, for about coming into my 8th or 9th year now. I also studied in Manchester, graduated in 2009. But yeah, just happy to sort of answer any questions and get to know everyone, really.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us tonight, Sophie. I'm going to pass over to Murron. Murron, are you in Bolton at the moment?
Oh, well, I live in Bury, but I did go to Bolton University, yeah. So hi, everybody, I'm Murron. I'm a textile and surface designer, and I do that freelance. I work on design projects, heritage projects, and I also create my own collections, which I sell wholesale and independently. As well as that, I'm a teacher, so I'm newly qualified teacher, and I teach part-time to do my design work in the 19+ sector currently, but I do things like this, talks and workshops as well. That kind's all encompassed into my brand name, which is Textiles by Murron. So similar to Grace, I graduated in 2019 from my textiles and surface design course, and then did my PGC, and then last year in July, I set up as a freelancer. So I've really been nearly doing it a full year now. So I've learnt loads in that time. It's been an amazing experience. So hopefully I can share that with you and help anybody who's thinking about getting started and give some tips maybe.
Wow, what a time to start a new business, eh? Thanks, Murron. And then Claire, over to you. I mean, we've known each other for 20 odd years, I think.
Yeah. I think you first bought my 850 light for the when you worked at Manchester Art Gallery, when it was we first did it. So that's it's great. It's great to be involved. So my degree is in, I'm an ex-MMU student, but my degree is in embroidery. So my background is, I've not come from a natural kind of product background, although I would probably class myself as more of a product designer. I work within lighting, so I've designed, I've kind of worked on handmade products, but I've also designed commercially. I used to work for Habitat, and I've had my own company selling lighting, and a lot of the work was focused around paper, but it's really that I've got a fascination with light and the way that it reacts to different types of materials. But my current role is at MMU. I am the placement, I'm organising and setting up the new placement year for design students. So I'm reaching out a lot to creative companies for all different types of discipline, and then working within the university to support the students as well.
Great stuff, thanks, Claire. I think it's safe to say, Claire, like some of Claire's designs are like real design classics. Got one downstairs actually. Right, onwards to the questions. So I'm not going to ask all the questions to everyone. We're going to kind of jump around a bit, but all of the questions have come from our audience in advance. So thank you for getting those in. So the first question, I'm going to start off with Sophie, if that's okay. The first question is, how has your business and way of working changed in the last year?
So right at the beginning, well, I think January last year, I'd actually planned to open a pop-up shop in March. So January 2020, February 2020, it was really busy getting the furniture made, getting everything built. And then obviously we all locked down. So I was able to open my shop for 4 days at huge expense and cost and time, which was really quite stressful because obviously I was really planning on making that money then. So luckily I've been working online anyway. So I moved my entire collection and started doing smaller collections in drops via my website. So telling everyone a time and a place when it would be ready, and curating the selection of items that I'd sell. It wasn't too different to my way of working beforehand because I'm already selling online anyway, but the pop-up shop was one thing that was a real blow, to be honest. But since then, I've just continued to create collections and kind of just work on things that I really want to do. I've kind of got a bit more time now. I work from home anyway. I'm lucky in that respect. I have a studio at home, so I am able to just pop downstairs and make food. But then also when I am really feeling creative, I can just crack on. So that's been really nice as well, just to with everything that's happening, and it's just nice to be able to have a focus that's not stressful world.
Sounds like a smart way to adapt, but having to be very agile as well. And Grace, I know you've had a busy year and kind of quite a lot of shifts in your year. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously said at the beginning, my exhibition was meant to be just as the first lockdown started. And really I'd just kind of been preparing for that up until then. So with the different kind of tiers, and then are we getting out of lockdown, are we not knowing when that's eventually going to happen, kind of it was a bit of a struggle, but not too bad, because I like all the work was already ready and stuff, so it wasn't like I was panicking to get things done for eventual opening dates. But I don't have my own studio or anything, so making any other work at the moment for me has kind of been put on hold because I have to hire in the Midlands, so getting to is not a viable option for me at the moment, and I can't have a hot shop in my flat to make any of my work, so it's a bit. But yeah, I've had to kind of adapt to like selling stuff I already had made, and I did a commission for the Harris Museum in Preston as well, which gave me a bit of income and exposure to my work. So that was cool.
Some big shifts, and I think we were saying earlier that probably hot glass is one of the most difficult and challenging practices to kind of keep up. Like generally it's difficult, the access to furnaces and everything, but right now with it involving groups of people in the making process as well as the access to the equipment, it's pretty tough to get through. Murron, I was going to ask you a kind of related question. So you've probably been making changes as well. Will you keep to your new ways of working, or are you keen to return to the way that you were previously working?
Well, in some ways, this has been like a massive learning curve, and it's actually carved a bit of a different path for me. So as I was previously saying, I graduated in 2019, and all along whilst doing my textile and surface design course, I was always doing bits and pieces. I did like live projects, and I got a lot of contacts which I've kept and continued working with. So when it came to like last year, in July, and I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do, set it up after I finished my PGCE. I was kind of going into it with fresh eyes anyway, and we're already in the midst of all this that was going on. So in some ways, I didn't really know any different. So similar to Grace, I was supposed to be doing my pop-up shop at the Easter time last year, but obviously everything going on, it had to be postponed. So I had thankfully managed to do it in October, which was a great experience. So I kind of I'd set my online shop up, I'd started on Etsy as well, but that was like a secondary thing, and I was like doing bits of freelance and selling my own work. And then I did the pop-up shop, and I used that as a bit of a chance to add stuff to my collection that I already had. So because I did the teaching, I didn't really have a lot of time to just come up with a brand new collection. So I took my graduating degree show, I reworked it all and created something a bit more commercial, like a product line, and that's what I took forward to launch myself, if you like, my own collection. So when the pop-up shop came, it was a really great experience, and I got a lot out of that. And then after that, I continued like selling my work and things. And as it got along, like December time, things changed again. And I started to think about stuff a bit differently. And I'd started teaching by this point. So now, as we are, I've kind of re-looked at everything and re-looked at all my strengths and weaknesses, because over that time frame, I've really got to learn a lot more about myself in terms of the way of approaching business, and find where my strong points are and where my weaknesses are. And at this point now, I'm kind of like shifting into the next stage, if you like, and I've reevaluated everything. And I'm focusing more on like my design project work and more my practice as a designer moving forward. And I'm currently working on my website. So I'm going through this kind of like transition of the business, and all along this time I've been doing like loads of free webinars and getting business support and help. And one thing that keeps reoccurring in all this is people say you've got 1 to 2 years, and it's kind of like a testing period where you try things out and it's really moldable. You could start as one thing and end up at the end of them 2 years or a year as another. And I think I've really found that so far. I don't think there's been any drastic changes in the sense of what I do. That's stayed the same, but I think it's more the approach. And I do think with everything that's been going on, that slightly played a part in it, but not as a negative thing. It could actually be a positive thing. So in terms of changing practice and things, it's more a learning curve for me and trying stuff out than it has been actually changing anything like I did before.
Wow, that sounds like a whirlwind of activity. And Claire, I mean, I know your work at the moment is more kind of engaged in creative education. How have you found the last year kind of affecting your work there? Oh, you just need to unmute.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, everything that we've been doing with the students, because we're kind of crossing bubbles and crossing groups and things, it's all online, but it's been what's been really great is that it's enabled me, we were just sort of saying in the chat before, I've been able to reach out to lots of creative industries and really get meetings with people that, you know, might have taken a lot of effort to go and meet them, travel to different parts of the country. And it's actually been quite effortless in that respect. So that's been really positive, and just kind of continuing to reach out and build those networks over this time when not necessarily companies perhaps have not been able to sort of take students on or take them under their wings, that actually they have been able to offer a lot of advice and impart a bit of wisdom, and you know, being kind of positive to be able to reach out to people has been really good. And it's, yeah, I mean, I suppose with the homeschooling, it's been a bit of a nightmare for my own practice. There's just been no time, but there's an idea, there's kind of that there has been more time to kind of think about where I'd like to take my practice next as well, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting on that. So yeah.
So for some people, there may have been some benefits in terms of kind of travel and reflection, and kind of also opportunities for development, I guess.
Yeah, it's that. I think it's that it's a network. It's building that network, and I think that's really important to stress to anybody who's kind of a new maker or new. I think, I suppose when I look back at the sort of early days of trying to form that creative business, it was really about going to the shows, taking part in exhibitions, that you kind of form that creative network around you. And if you haven't really got that you know, the opportunity to show your work alongside other people's, it's quite difficult to build that network. But going to maybe online conferences and things like that is a really good way of kind of gaining and broadening that network, really. And I think it's the network which I would say is really invaluable to new makers, and that is something that you can be really doing during this difficult situation.
And hopefully as the situation changes, we might have more of a chance to actually make those kind of real networks as well as the virtual ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back online though, Sophie, I was going to ask you, have you moved to selling more work online? And if so, which platforms have you found best to sell your work through?
So I launched my business online. I think I did a few markets here and there, but I was just mainly focused on having a network of people anywhere in the world that was able to see and buy my work. I think being in London, you kind of forget how easy it is to just, you know, nip out to places. And obviously with everything that's going on, it's so difficult. But no, that's not really changed. I mean, I think the first place you go is online to, you know, even just to do research for anything. So I think it's so important to have a strong online presence. And I built my website with Squarespace, 8-9 years ago now, and it's still going strong. It's so easy, and it's not cheap, but it's so easy to get it looking good without having to code and have someone else involved, and that extra cost of actually getting someone to build you a website. It's just one of the easier options, and the link between payments is really quick, and I'd highly recommend it. But no, I've always been selling online. It's something that I think is really important, and so I've always made sure that was an option. And having the shop was, I had a pop-up shop, I think it was in 2019, that went really well, and I thought I'd do another one in London for my London audience, but mainly it's online anyway.
I think it's really interesting. There was a recent report from the Crafts Council that was saying that the kind of the face-to-face buying direct from makers is really important, but the growth in online sales is just enormous as well. So there's still a need for both, really. So Murron, I know that you're kind of still in early stages of business, but how have you promoted your business and stayed connected to customers or made new connections during lockdown?
Well, similar to Sophie, really, I launched my business online, so it's all I ever knew kind of thing. And I first did that through my own website, and then a little bit later on, I set up an Etsy shop. and I just used Instagram and Facebook to kind of use that as a way of promoting myself and getting myself out there. But over time, I found that my website's been kind of the strongest one out of everything. That's where people find me, that's where I direct people to. So in terms of like making money and sales, that's been kind of the strongest one for me. And recently I've made the decision to, it's kind of controversial because I know people love Etsy and it's their whole business, but I've decided to just move away from Etsy because I found that my website, like I say, has been the most successful place for me in terms of making sales and people finding my work and being interested in it. And it also meant that my whole brand was under one roof. I weren't directing people to all different places to try and find me. It all lived in the same place, and I just felt it would be a better place for people to learn about me on everything I did, not just a little bit here and a little bit there. Everything was brought together, and being new in the industry and still trying to promote myself, this is something that I'm focusing on at the minute, and I've got lots of plans for, because I think I've noticed a lot of areas where I could improve, which is all part and parcel of it, really. I've decided that my website is going to be the main thing that pushes me forward, and I can direct people to, and it's easier for people to find me. So in respects to that, yeah, online's been my thing really since starting out, because obviously there's not really been much other options to do anything else. But saying that, I do work with clients, so I do a lot of heritage projects. So like Claire was saying before, it's a really good thing, this like Zoom, because it's so accessible for people that you may have not been able to get an appointment with or meet because of all different reasons or because of time constraints. Zoom's actually made that a lot more accessible and more a viable way of actually getting in touch with people, making things happen, because it's so quick and easy. You can literally have a meeting and you can go and do something else, and I think that fits into my client's lifestyle a bit more in terms of the job role. So that's really helped things, and I think it's allowed projects to go ahead as well because of having that online platform. But I have done like some face-to-face things, like I mentioned before. I won the Manchester Craft and Design Centre award for my graduating collection in 2019, and last year I did my pop-up shop, so that was a brilliant experience to kind of get that face-to-face, actually see the people that are interested in my work, which was really nice, because I don't think there's anything better than that face-to-face, you know, contact and chatting to people that show that interest in your work. And as well, I do have some wholesale clients, which I thankfully managed to go and see and do some orders with before, in between we were in lockdown. So it's a higgledy-piggledy approach, I think, just at the minute. But starting out, online's actually really helped me. It's actually worked out pretty well, and especially with all this transition onto Zoom, I think it's actually been working in my favour really, and it continues to as we move forward. So in some ways I'd say it's benefited me.
Oh, well, that's a brilliantly positive thing to grab out of it, isn't it? So moving on to some kind of more questions more about inspiration, motivation. Grace, I was going to ask, what do you do to inspire your creativity when you're facing a bit of a creative block? How do you get through that?
Ooh, I think, especially at the moment, because I have a full-time job kind of thing that I have to do to be able to live, that always helps, because that's so kind of like different from my practice, and I don't want to say boring, but it kind of gets the brain, like my brain, a bit more. I look forward to being able to come home and be creative and not do that. So I think that's helping a lot at the moment, especially with not being able to do what I want to do full time. It re-motivated me to actually be able to enjoy the creative parts of my day. So yeah, I think that's one way in the situation that we're in that I found helpful.
That's really interesting, because some people would sort of see that, you know, full-time job as really pulling them away from their practice, but actually sounds like it's quite useful at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So.
Thank you. And Claire, you mentioned, you know, the kind of struggles and the juggles with young kids and creativity and a full-time job as well. What do you do when you're kind of reaching that blank wall phase? Have you got any top tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it is like if you are kind of, and I think it is the reality of being a maker, that you do have to kind of like juggle different things, and you do juggle that job. And I think for me it's about I think I always try and, you know, I think creativity is something that you need to keep flowing, and you need to keep the ideas, you need to keep that kind of moving, and sometimes it's more about kind of bringing that all together. So it's like sort of having a bit of a kind of review of all the Instagram pictures you've taken, all the kind of photographs you've been taking, or drawings that you've been making, that kind of thing, and things that you've been looking at. And I sort of have like a bit of like a dumping ground of stuff where or pinboard or whatever, that I kind of put stuff. And then now and again I'll have a bit of a kind of sort of sort out an edit of that, just to see, you know, where that's going, where there's, you know, if there's an element, if I've been given like a freelance brief or something, then it's an element of kind of really gathering that, bringing that research together, because it's about yeah, really sort of bringing that kind of originality to a project and stuff. So it's really about kind of gathering those thoughts and seeing the patterns emerge, of whether it's like of influences or of color or shape or form or whatever, or material, that kind of thing. So I think that it's those sorts of moments. But I think sometimes just drawing, and in lockdown I feel like I've been doing like old lady watercolor drawings. I've actually really enjoyed it, and it's quite funny because we've like sort of sat down as a family. I'm like, right, we are going to draw, and we all sit down and draw, and it's quite peaceful, and it's been nice, and we need to do more of it. So drawing without any kind of sort of intention or worry, it's kind of, for me, it's about getting your eye back in again and really looking and seeing and making those connections, and that's how I use drawing. So yeah.
Great. I mean, that sounds like the perfect approach, and I do think it's wonderful the way that you know, people have embraced creativity as a tool for well-being at this time. And yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy, does it? A piece of paper and a pen will do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sophie, you're about 10-11 years into your practice. Are there any tasks that you've decided to kind of let go or delegate? I know you talked about building your own website. Is there anything that you kind of think, I really don't want to do that, or I really want somebody else to do that for me?
The problem is I'm a really selfish worker, and I have to be in control of everything I'm doing, which doesn't work well when there's lots of tasks I can't really do. But I think I'm 9 years in now, and it's only last year during lockdown that I actually first asked for help from someone. So I've kind of done everything myself, which is, yeah, it's a lot. But I've outsourced some elements of design in terms of like the printed materials that I put inside my packages, just because I know someone can do it better than me. So I'd rather pay someone to do that than spend a week doing something that I end up not liking. The sort of pre-processing of my timber, I pay someone else to do now, because my time is just better spent physically making the items once I've processed the timber. So again, it's massively sped up my process, and I'm able now to produce so much more than I was before. So there are definitely benefits to it, but I'm again really, really selfish. But there's a few other admin bits I would love to give away to anyone that wants them, because I'm the worst at answering emails and everything. But like I said, I try not to give away too much, just because I am quite selfish in the way I work. And to be honest, I mean, even though I've been going for a fairly long time, it's only really been in the last couple of years I've started to make some real money with it. So it's been a difficult thing, but actually I can't afford someone to do that for me. I have to do it myself. So with the website, I had to do that myself. And I've always done my own photography and always done my own design up until recently of like I said, with the printed materials. But yeah, taking it one step at a time and trying not to outstretch myself, but as well as making it enjoyable. And, you know, the main reason I'm doing this is because I love it. And if I have to get stuck down with the things I don't want to do, I won't do it. So, you know, that's why I'm really bad at answering emails.
Well, I'm very glad you answered ours.
Probably late. Yeah.
You described that as kind of selfish. I don't see that as selfish at all, though. I see that as, you know, the challenge of being a maker and having so many different things to juggle on top of, you know, what is the real drive, which is about making and creating. And also, yeah, that stage of business and kind of making some really smart decisions about what you don't need to do. But it's not easy, any of that stuff. Okay, well, question for everyone. This is just kind of quick one, but how have you kept motivated during this period? Because I know we all have our peaks and troughs. I think probably February for everyone was a pretty tough time, but have you got any tips on how to kind of keep motivated? Grace, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that well, in my circumstances, giving myself a break from different projects has really kind of helped keep me motivated. But I still want to be creative, so I just do a bit for fun and then go back to it, and it kind of being able to take care of your own well-being and not putting too much stress on a project that you can't necessarily get done because of the circumstances. That's been important for me, taking a lot of breaks and kind of coming back to bits that I know I can't do, and instead of just, you know, getting bogged down with trying to focus on it.
That sounds very wise, not putting too much pressure on yourself. How about you, Murron?
Yeah, I'd say the same. Like Grace has a really good point there. When you're really passionate about a new idea or a project you're working on, you go into it with your eyes wide open and excited. And then sometimes like the pressure of what it's for, or it could be anything really, if that starts building up, then all that creativity just goes completely out, and then you just sat there not enjoying it, and then you can't create your best work. So I think it's a really good point that Grace made about stepping away and just giving yourself some time. And it could just be not just creativity, but from like the running your own business side of things, because you are your own boss. You're every job in that role. You know, you don't just do one thing, like Sophie was saying, you just do everything, and that can be overwhelming. I mean, you're just one person at the end of the day, and I think especially if you're new to it, it is a shock to the system, and it is quite a lot to take on. So, you know, you're no use to anybody if you're going to burn yourself out, and it's important to kind of recognize that and recognize your strengths and weaknesses as well. I think that's something that I've learned this year, just really thinking, yeah, I can do that really well, but that not so much. And those areas are the things I've kind of looked for helping, or maybe gone and asked somebody else, like, what do you think? And that's helped me move forward. So having that time out, recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, and like Claire was saying, creating for yourself with no purpose whatsoever, and just doing it because you enjoy the process of making, and that in itself can keep you really current and obviously keep your work fresh as well, because you're never just parking it and leaving it, it's always moving, even if it's not for anything. So I'd say all those things, and as well, like, especially what I do, it's very trend driven. So think, you know, going outside, maybe I get inspired by nature a lot, looking at nature, or it could be looking at sort of trends and things that interest you, researching, that can really help. But at the same time, not getting stuck in the world of Instagram, because sometimes that can make you feel like you're just on the wrong treadmill. Sometimes you look at everybody else and you think, oh, I'm not doing that, but that's a good thing because you're you. So I think it's important to remember it's just getting that balance right, really. But if you do that, I think it does help motivate you.
Brilliant, thanks, Murron. So digital detox, nature's healing powers. How about you, Sophie?
I mean, yeah, similar to what Grace was saying, with the fact that you can't force it. So there's times when, I mean, my bedroom's like just next door, so I'll wake up and be like, oh, I've got to go to the workshop, I've got to do something. But if I do that, you know, I'll end up sitting in here and doing nothing for 2 hours. But whereas if I go out, have a walk, do something else, answer a couple of emails, come back, and then I'm like, actually, yeah, I do really want to do this now. And like Grace, I had a part-time job right at the beginning of this, and it was so boring, it was dull, and it was easy, it was just money. So coming back, I was like, yes, I want to go, I want to do this, I want to make something. And it is so good, definitely, to have that like ability to just do something mundane, even if it's just putting your washing on or taking the dog for a walk, or like, you know, just doing something, and then yeah, just coming back to it later. But like Murron was saying, I do a lot of research, a lot of time online, a lot of time outside, and just like Claire was saying, I've been doing a lot of making just for me. So just making things for the sake of it, and it doesn't need to have a purpose, and it's just working on improving my skills as a wood carver and making stuff I've never made before. So, you know, why not give it a try?
Oh, creative experimentation. That's the right treat, isn't it? Claire, how about you?
Oh, I think one of the things that's been really great is that I've got two really good friends, and once a week we go out for like a night walk. We go out around and we just kind of set the world to rights, and it's just really great. They're both in the creative industries as well, and it's, you know, we've been able to really kind of support each other with things that we're maybe struggling with, or make connections for stuff that we're talking about work stuff, but we've all got kids the same age as well, so we're talking about it's like work, family kind of, and it's, yeah, and it's, I think that's really kept me motivated and really buoyant and throughout, really. So it's, yeah, surrounding yourself with good people who you know, who can offer really great feedback for maybe an instant idea that you might have. So I think, yeah, it's good.
Nothing like good people.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so moving on, kind of thinking about back at the time when you were starting your own creative business. Claire, could you just give us an idea of what advice you would give somebody who's considering doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I say, that I think the network that, and we're at the moment we're talking to students who are hoping to go out into a placement, maybe in their second year, or even as graduates. It's about I would think it's sort of understanding that what that world of the maker means, and maybe it's that, you know, you maybe have quite a clear intention about what your own practice is, but understanding what it's like to do an exhibition. So maybe I would advise to try and see if you could get if you can afford to sort of do maybe a day's unpaid work to support another maker who's a bit more established than you. That would give you a really good idea as to the day-to-day runnings of a business, or like you said, like the administration tasks that go with that, or how offering to support somebody when we do get to have real live shows again, to support another maker in an exhibition, so that, you know, I remember I did what was then, it seemed a long time ago, Chelsea Crafts Fair when it first came out, and with my lights, and I really didn't have a clue what I was doing, really, and I thought, yeah, I sort of wish that I maybe had that experience to support another maker, even just kind of let's sort of that idea of curating a show was completely alien to me, and I wasn't really that interested in it at the time. I would rather give it to somebody else to kind of do that. It didn't really feel like my specialism. And also that kind of advice for future makers. The first design that I did, the first sort of lighting design that I did, I ended up licensing it to Habitat. And I remember having this contract in my hand, and I was like, I don't really know whether I should sign this or not. Am I a maker? Am I a designer? If I do this, does that make me a designer? And I kind of give up the rights to making this object, and it was a really difficult decision. And I remember this guy said to me, look, it's not the first thing you've made, it's not the last thing you're going to make. Sign the contract. If you like working like that, do it again. If you don't, move on, do something else. And that was really, really great sort of piece of advice. And I think we all move on we all move on to do different collections, and we all move on to do different things. And I think see that evolution has been really positive.
Excellent. And so this one is for you, Grace. What's the best piece of advice that you've received in developing your career so far?
I think that it's kind of who you know has been like the best piece of advice. I think networking's been really important for me, especially as the glass community is such like a tight-knit community within the UK. That obviously I did work for Gemma, who's at the craft centre, and then my internship, I was friends with the previous intern. So I think who you know in the maker community really helps you build your own kind of way into it, because they can all help you kind of progress.
So do you think that's something that's kind of really worth investing time into?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thanks, Grace. How about you, Murron?
Yeah, similar really. Like it's going to sound a bit wacky saying this, but how I look at it is you're like a massive bouquet of flowers, and when you start off with maybe just one flower. You don't have many, and then as you go along, you're like just adding and adding and adding. And I think that comes from all different places, whether it's research you've done, people that you've met, like Grace said, like that continuous network building. It can really take you different directions. Like with me, it's very much been the heritage side of things that I've done, working on heritage projects. So just to give people a bit of an insight to what that is, basically I've worked with some museums. I'm currently working with Touchstones Museum in Rochdale, and I take a piece of their archives and I translate that into a product range for their shop. So stuff like that, I've kind of in a way fallen into it. It was never sort of something at the front of my mind. I thought, yes, that's me, that's what I'm doing. It's something that over time doing my degree and then afterwards I've fallen into it, but I absolutely love it, and it's a massive part of my practice now. So you just find as you go along, you add all these different types of flowers to your bouquet that makes you. So I think that's a way that I look at it really. It is just like a process where you do grow and develop, and very much so like what Claire's saying, you do adapt and change over time. You might try something, you think, yep, it worked then, great, brilliant, but now I want to go and do this. And I think that's really at this point now where I'm up to, that's what I'm doing. I'm reevaluating everything. I'm thinking about, do I really want to continue selling my products myself, or is it something I want to take more into kind of a wholesale basis? It's just reevaluating stuff and just shifting it slightly and just growing. You're just constantly flourishing all the time, just never stops. And I think in some ways that's what keeps you as fresh and as current and as on it as you can be as a designer or a maker. So yeah, definitely, you're just making that bouquet.
I love that image of a bouquet of flowers. That's just brilliant, and it really reflects your work, Murron, so colourful and like natural. So Sophie, I'm going to hand that bouquet of flowers over to you. What's the best bit of advice you had starting out?
I think I've always been told to start small. I think telling my parents that I was going to become a full-time woodworker was something they couldn't really get their head around as both being medical. So it was sort of just start small. And I totally agree with that. You don't need to, not overstretching yourself and putting, obviously, you can put in all the energy and effort, but there's no need to spend a load of money. There's no need to make all these promises that you might not be able to keep. So I think starting small is really important. And I think one thing that I've had a conversation about recently that I think is really important is that there's room for everyone. And I work similarly. I worked to build a community of woodworkers that we're able to share ideas, share skills, go to each other's studios, send wood to people, and it's just like you were saying, it's there's so many small tight-knit communities within these different craft and maker fields. It's just finding your people is really important, and you never know who you're going to be speaking to. You never know where things might go, and it's just really nice. I mean, I work on my own. I don't have a housemate, so like people that I'm with my online community, those are my colleagues, and it's really nice to be able to share ideas with people and not be in your own head too much. And yeah, you never know where it's going to go, so I think it's really important to build your community.
Oh yeah, the power of community. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing, Smith. And again, maybe something that has started to come to the fore more during the pandemic, and perhaps one of those kind of positive things that we can try and keep hold of as well. Okay, I'm aware that we're sort of going slightly over time. Are we all right to just do sort of 5 more minutes perhaps, and then we'll wrap up? And again, apologies to everyone for the terrible technical glitch at the beginning of the evening. There's a question that somebody asked about mentoring. I don't know if any of you would like to answer this. The question is, if somebody looking to start their own creative business wants a mentor, what advice would you give to find one? Murron.
Hiya. Well, I'd say really that kind of online community is the best place to start. There's so much free content online. If you just spend a little bit of time looking, you'll be surprised how much you can actually come across, especially on Facebook. You find there's loads and loads of groups and people are quite supportive on there. And again, on Instagram, following people and just like saying hi, I do this, or just saying how do you find that, go in and all the rest of it. I think the main thing is to remember when you're starting out is you don't need to know everything, because that's the whole point, isn't it? You're finding your way, you're moving forward. So if you were unsure of stuff, I'd say if you look to people that you look up to and you think, oh, I'd like to do something that they do, or a particular designer or artist, whatever, maybe just send them a message and just say, I really like your work and this is something that I've been trying to get into. And you'll find more times than not, they'll get back to you and they'll give you some advice. And I think that's a really good place to start. And then mentoring and stuff, you might find that these people do that as a part of their practice. So, I think it is just spend a little bit of time, and just networking is key. It is something that you find the more you do, the more opportunities and things you learn. So yeah, definitely that's a good place to start. I'd say that's what I've done starting out. And even though I'm really early on in my journey, I've learned quite a lot, and I've been asked quite a lot to do things like this, like talks and that, and I'm more than happy to kind of help people if they've got questions and stuff. I always advise them to send me a message or follow me on Instagram, whatever. Because it is one of them, like what Sophie was saying, there's room for all and we're all kind of in this together, and it is a really friendly community. So I think everybody kind of mentors each other in that sense.
Brilliant, great answer. And so again, like building on the community, the networks, and I guess reaching out to people. And I know some people find that easier than others, but I think you're right, Murron. Even if you're quite a shy person, I mean, I'm quite a shy person, but the more you do these things, the kind of easier they become. Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of getting out of the comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah,
definitely. We've done a mentor. We started this year for third year students, because a lot of the degrees, like illustrators and makers and textile makers and things, are largely freelance or kind of maker individual businesses. And so we've established a new mentorship program for across the third year, and we've got we've had some really, positive reaction from people who are, some kind of, we've got mentors from Hallmark, from Dunelm, from the sort of really large corporations, but they all, quite a lot of them did actually start off as makers and individuals, and it's quite, and people have been more than generous with their time, and it can just start off if you've got a portfolio or a collection of work and you like somebody's work. We've just encouraged students as well to just say, I really like your work, wondered if I could spare half an hour of your time for over a cup of coffee. This is what I'm doing, and I'm looking to maybe have 2 or 3 questions, that specific things that you'd really like to ask them for feedback on. And that makes it really simple for somebody to reply and do it quite quickly. So yeah.
So do you think a lot of people are kind of quite willing to, do that paying it back thing as well?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think it's I think it is a funny thing, the kind of lockdown. I think you've either got people who've got more time on their hands or not enough. And I think actually a lot of people have been able to kind of make that time, and it's a real pleasure actually. And I think particularly within commercial businesses, they have had they've had kind of sort of time to be able to sort of say, actually we do need to encourage the next generation. I think there's a real heartfelt kind of but everybody's heart really goes out to new makers and new graduates, because it's a terrible it's a really difficult time. And I think that's why, and people are kind of paying that on and really sharing what they can. So please make the most of it.
Yeah, seize the opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, so Grace, I've got a last question for you. If you could sort of put yourself back in February last year, pre-pandemic, is there anything that you would kind of tell yourself in advance to warn yourself?
I think I would have possibly prepared a lot more to be able to share on social media to kind of keep people informed. Obviously no one could have prepared for this, but especially with my limited making capabilities at the moment, I don't have a lot to share online to keep people engaged. So I think it's always good to have a stock of things to share in the future, just in case.
That's very wise advice. And hopefully we'll be able to share your work in the real very soon. So excited when I saw the online exhibition on our website. Honestly, it just made me want to go and see stuff. I was like, frothing at the mouth. Okay, and then final question. This one's for you, Sophie. Obviously, the pandemic's been incredibly challenging for everyone and for small businesses. But are there any kind of positives that you can draw that might influence your business in the future?
Yeah, I guess having had the time to just make for the sake of making, it's pushed my work in a different direction. So that's been really nice to see. I think I try not to make too many plans, because you never know what's going to happen. So I try not to be like, next year I'm doing this. I'll sort of work on like a 3-monthly basis, because who knows what's going to happen after that. So I think that's definitely something that I'll continue doing. I release my work less often now as well, just because at the beginning it was like, I'm not going to the post office every week. So having it available, I think I'm sort of working on between 4 and 6 times a year now. So that's actually quite nice, because it does give you a bit of personal freedom as well. You're not having to rush back and package up some packages that have been bought that day, and then you change your plans for the next day. So it's making more time for myself really, and just making it work for me, and rather than me than it being my job, it is something that I've made work for me and that I really enjoy. So yeah, I guess it's, even though we've all slowed down in the pandemic, and that's been great, people are way more patient now. I I think with, what Claire was saying, people are so much more patient and willing now. So just being able to sort of speak to customers and have longer conversations that you might not have had time for before has been really nice.
I think that's so interesting as well about making your work for you, because I think it can become a bit of a treadmill, can't it? And then you sort of feel like you've never got time to jump off and consider how it does work for you, or even how you're going to kind of create new things. So to draw those positives, I think is amazing. So I think we're kind of pretty much out of time now. Again, apologies for the late start, but I do want to say a massive thank you to all our panel members, particularly for their patience when we all got bumped out of the Zoom. So thank you, Claire, Murron, Grace and Sophie for joining us. As Claire mentioned, one of the great things about this whole situation is that we can do this event from different parts of the country. So it's great to be able to come together in that way. And also thank you again to our funders and to Laura, my brilliant colleague, for arranging all of this. Please fill in the evaluation form, because unless we can demonstrate the value of events like this, we won't get funding to do more in the future. And we'd like all of our audience to stay in contact. So you can email us at contact@craftanddesign.com, and Laura might be able to just bob that in the chat if it's not already there. We'll let you know when the recorded version goes on live, just in case you want to tell a friend about it or recommend it to anyone. And watch this space for Grace's live show. We will also let you know when it's launching, and it'll have a nice long run so that you've got plenty of time to come and see it, because I guess different people will feel good about coming out at different times. So thank you all. It's been great to chat, and we hope to see you all again soon on the other side.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.